It's hard to believe, isn't it? Our late and beloved Queen Elizabeth II and the Hollywood gangster. As ever, let me explain. Hi, good morning, Neil Sean here in St James's Park today. I hope you're well. Those beautiful daffs behind me. I hope you're still enjoying your Easter wherever you are in the world. And as ever, don't eat too much chocolate. By the way, I loved a tip that somebody told me in the comments below. And they said basically, don't buy Easter eggs if you've got grandchildren or just friends you want to give them to. Just get them a giant bar of chocolate, far more value, and not a lot of waste of the box. I thought, what a clever idea. I've treated myself to one. I know, well, more than one actually. Yeah, as you can see. Back as ever to your Breaking Balls story of the day. When you think about Hollywood gangsters, there's none bigger, really, is there, in my opinion, than the brilliant, superb actor that was the late George Raft. Now, George Raft became a huge star, all thanks to those wonderful films in the 30s and 40s. But by the time he arrived here in Great Britain in the early 1950s to make a movie at a very small studio called Nettlefold in 1952, things weren't going particularly well. But George was ever the entrepreneur, He always wanted to be back on top, be big. And of course, he found himself in London at a time of evolving change. We were just about to enter a brand new Elizabethan period. And naturally, George wanted in on it, He was a Hollywood star. What he wanted was to get next to the next reigning monarch. So he had this very ingenious plan. That didn't work, but then he seized upon another opportunity. This time, though, his co-star in the film, Sally Gray. As ever, let me explain. The movie itself wasn't a particularly great now, the movie itself wasn't a particularly great movie, it's a B feature, a second feature, so it wasn't really up there. It was being paid quite a bit of money, and the reason why he came over here, he was looking for other opportunities. This particular story was told to me by a wonderful windmill girl who actually met George Raft because he decided at that point as well to be pictured with the windmill girls that he'd read so much about during the Second World War. Remember, We Never Clothed, who were rather infamous for dancing, shall we say, with far few clothes on than you may have seen on a beach in that particular period. I'll leave it there for you to look up. But what's interesting here is that George, as I said, was looking for publicity opportunities, and he desperately wanted to meet Queen Elizabeth, or the soon-to-be Queen Elizabeth. Now, what happened was he finished the film, went back, and nothing really happened. Then he stumbled across the fact that his co-star in that movie, Sally Gray, had become a baroness. Oh yes, she'd married well, retired from the movies, and became the Baron's fourth wife. Now, they were over living in Ireland, but George had this incredible plan because in correspondence with Sally, he basically found out that she, along with her husband, were going to be attending the coronation. And he felt this was a perfect opportunity for him to be invited, and perhaps if the Baron didn't wish to go, then maybe he could escort Sally. You get the picture. Now, all this was looking slightly, yes, could possibly be, because at that point, the Baron wasn't in the best of health. What's interesting here is he lived to be 100 and became one of the longest serving peers in the House of Lords, so obviously in quite robust health. Sadly, this particular idea never came to fruition. One, that according to a very good source who knew George very well, told me that he couldn't really believe it. After all, he was offering to bring a bit of Hollywood sparkle to the coronation. Remind you of anyone? Now, George again did attempt to get close to royalty way back in the latter part of another bit of his career when he popped up on the Sunday night at the London Palladium opposite a budding young comic and brand new host, Jimmy Tarbuck, who introduced him from the stalls of the Palladium, and he just happened to step up and do a dance on that famous Palladium stage. Let's not forget, he was an old vaudevillian and he knew exactly how to shake a good shimmy. But for George, we're not quite sure whether he ever got his dream because there's no actual record of him meeting Queen Elizabeth or indeed the Duke of Edinburgh. But seemingly George knew the power of the British monarchy. And isn't it fascinating to know that, as I often say here on the show, you look back in history and truly nothing is new. George fancied getting close to the monarchy. Sadly for him, it didn't quite work out. But what a shrewd and clever idea. Oh, and the film Escape Route? Well, if you haven't seen it, it is available for free on YouTube, as is this channel, and it's a good film. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but apparently George didn't think it was one of his best. I'll let you decide in the comments below whether you think the same. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.